Dan, thanks for joining us. So what we're just going to do is just going to have a little bit of a chat about the season, how it all went. Obviously, it's been a little bit up and down at times. So look, I think what we'll do though is we'll start with the positive, and tell us what your season highlights were. What do you kind of remember most fondly about the season?
Well, it's difficult to find, one massive high. I mean, we had we had a difficult season. Clearly, it was a brand new bike for the team that I was with already for 2 previous seasons, which we quickly made some steps with. But then we plateaued relatively soon after that, and didn't really take many steps forward. We had some good results at the time. We had, I think, maybe 8th or 7th was our best, and the group where I wanted to be was not too far away. It was, in terms of some of the race results, a second or 2 up the road would have put me, right exactly where I wanted to be. But just struggled to make that next break. So I'd say the highs were probably the consistency, if you want to call it that. Though clearly the results weren't where we expected. We were consistently around the same area and constantly looking to improve. But then also, like you mentioned, some lows along the way as well. So, but this is racing. This happens every season, no matter how good or bad. Racing is a tough sport. It's generally 3 bad weekends followed by 1 good one, if you want to call it that. And yes, the season ended on more of a low when we decided to split with the team. But we're looking to the future. It's all we can do. The season's finished now. I think I finished 15th or 16th overall in the championship, which doesn't enter my mind. It's a bad season. But it was another go at Superbike. It could have been a lot different if a few things went a slightly different way.
So obviously we'll come on to the whole kind of tag experience and how that came about, going kind of different directions a little bit later on. But still trying to focus on the positives of the season. Is there a race that stands out for you as kind of being, that was my best race of the year? Obviously your best results were at Donington, I think, in the middle of the year there. But that was in some uncertain conditions as well, as far as I can remember.
And actually there was a lot of potential for that race, or them 2 races, to be a lot better than what they were. I recall there was a drying track and I had a wet front tyre with an intermediate rear and kicked myself straight away on lap 4 or 5. I knew I should have had an intermediate front, and if I did, we would have been in the top 5 in that race easily. So that was one of my best results of the season. I do recall also the 3rd race at Snetterton, I think, was quite a good result for me. Can't remember exactly where, but I know I was right in the sort of main group of the race, with the likes of Brooks and Hickman, and really not too far away from where we needed to be, although we had some issues going on at the same time. So I'm holding some positive feelings from the season. I feel like I'm riding as normal and as well as ever, but I had some bad feelings with what was underneath me. I'm not saying the bike was bad. The bike, I think, was actually quite good, but there was just 1 or 2 key areas, I think, with how the bike felt underneath me that I wasn't comfortable with, and that sometimes maybe didn't bring the best in me out.
So, following on from that then, you obviously split with Tag with 2 rounds to go, a couple of days before the round 10 at Donington. What led to that decision to go to separate ways? Was there one particular point where you thought, you know what, this isn't right for me anymore?
Yes, to answer that, yes, there was. Clearly in the run-up to that event, we weren't having any improvement, we weren't having the best of times, as in we'd stagnated. We were constantly finishing 12th, 13th, 14th, which isn't where the team wanted to be, isn't where I expected we would be. And obviously when that goes on for a bulk of rounds, questions are asked. The team question my ability, they have a bit more maybe stress about what's going on. They're pumping money into this round by round and we're not improving. I ask questions of myself. Everyone's questioning the situation, and when it's not improving, that becomes really difficult. Tensions sort of are increasing in the atmosphere of the team. And we went to Alton Park and we had another average weekend. We were 12th, 13th, 14th in a similar area. And in the morning warm-up, we had that, catastrophic, if you want to call it, engine blow up, and I had to just decide to jump off the bike at 140 mile an hour. And that was fine, to be honest. I was a little bit beaten up and I had the old washing machine treatment, if you want to call it that, where you bounced around. But I walked back from the crash thinking, I've been at this 15, 20 years almost. I can read the signs when it isn't going well, and maybe it's just, this is a sign to say, Dan, quit while you're ahead. And I hate quitting. We all do as bike racers, but we weren't progressing. You're risking putting yourself in hospital like that, and I just thought, I think now's the time to have a chat with the team and just potentially call it a day. So that discussion was had, immediately after the incident and the following couple of days. And as a result of that chat, we just decided to call it a day, which I think was for the best. The team had me as their rider for 3 seasons. We'd had a lot of issues in them 3 seasons, but we had shown good speed as well. And if I was in their shoes, I'd probably want to try with another rider and see whether he had the same feeling, the same feedback, same issues. And also, from my point of view as a rider as well, I was probably a bit lost in my mental state as well, just not improving. If you want to throw into the mix as well, I've been riding a bike in World Endurance. I just started doing a couple of events for a different team in World Endurance, and I'd found some form there. I felt good with that bike. I knew that I was still riding as well as ever, yet when I came back to ride this package in the British Superbikes, I couldn't be myself on that bike again. So a lot of things led to that conversation, and for the best, we just decided to call it a day.
Well, with all due respect to tag racing, but overall the bike probably didn't perform in either class they were in the Superbikes or the Super Stock Thousands that Sean Linfoot was racing in. Do you feel like there was more pressure on you being in the Superbike class? Because if we're being frank and honest, Sean's results weren't the best either, considering the class.
Yeah, but they're two different situations. Sean races Super Stock, has done for a lot of years, and obviously is very connected in with the team and the family. Superbike is the key class that the team want to succeed in or put their eggs into, if you like. And obviously Superbike consumes a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of work, and a lot of budget to even turn up every weekend. So naturally, I think there's probably more focus and stress on the Superbike side anyway. And when you're not improving round by round and you have the same comments or the same things that you feel are holding you back, I guess there's just a point that comes where something has to change. And the only things that can really change are bike, which had changed once already, key members of the team, crew chiefs or electronics men, and riders. And probably one of the easiest things to change in the team's point of view was the rider.
Obviously, away from BSB, you've mentioned it already. You've been competing in the World Endurance Championship. Obviously, you were at Paul Ricard in France, and then at Most as well. How did you enjoy those events compared to your struggles, if we're being honest, in the Superbikes? Did it provide some sort of welcome distraction?
Absolutely, yeah, and the breath of fresh air, if you like, because not only was it a different brand bike, it was different tyres, it was different tracks, different championship, riding at night, for example, which was a lot of fun because I've not done a lot of that. So it was great. It was probably the first event all season that I feel like I've ridden free. I've ridden relaxed. I've ridden without concern of the bike or trying to feel why the bike isn't performing and why I can't be at one with the bike. It was nice. I haven't done a whole lot of endurance. I've done Suzuka 8 hours 2 or 3 times. Certainly I haven't done a 24-hour up to now, so I was really excited about the prospect of doing the 24-hour race. Clearly we didn't get to the end. Well, we only just made halfway before the engine broke. But it took away no enjoyment for me. That was a great experience. I did 4 or 5 stints at Paul Ricard in the Baldor. We had good speed, we had good consistency, and actually as a team all 3 riders worked really well. Really similar consistent speed, which is ideal for endurance. And I think we could have had a good result if should the engine not have broken how it did. Like you said, after that we went to Moss, which was a new track on the endurance calendar. Not a lot of riders had ridden there before. We actually had an upgraded engine for that event, and straight away we felt like we were strong. We were in the top 3-4 in each session. I actually topped my own qualifying session, and we had a good feeling that weekend. We thought we could fight for the podium. Again, all 3 riders were really strong. A few little issues in the race, which always happens in endurance. There's a 6 or plus hour race where there's a lot of time for things to happen. So we had our own sort of little issues which held us back a little bit, but I think if all things being well, we could have been in the battle for the podium. We finished 5th, which was still a strong result for us. It was a private, Polish team against all the factory teams, which were in the 4 positions in front of us. So, yeah, we can't moan about that. It was a good, strong end for us.
Is it something you'd like to go back and do more of next year, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. In my latter years, if you want to call it that, of racing, it's definitely something that I'd like to do some more of. Enjoy the whole aspect of the endurance weekend, the working alongside your teammates rather than trying to beat your teammate. I quite like that, how that team environment feels. So yeah, I would love to do some more endurance next season.
Earlier on in the year, we started out with a video at Alton Park testing for the British Superbike Championship. And you said that you thought it could be Jason O'Halloran's year.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, he came very, very close to winning the championship, and arguably thanks to the somewhat controversial showdown method of deciding the winner, he's lost out to his teammate in Tyrone McKenzie. Were you surprised to see Taz lift the trophy?
I guess you can't say surprised because the guy won a load of races. He was consistently finishing on the podium alongside Jason. If it wasn't Tyrone, it was Jason that was winning races for the bulk of the season, shall we say. So it could never be a surprise, winning that amount of races and that amount of podiums. Naturally, you're going to be in contention for the championship. It was between Taz and Jason. Obviously, Tommy came close. Iden was there. It was going to be one of the Yams, and I guess unfortunately for Jason, the showdown just didn't work out for him in the way that he'd have hoped for, to say how strong he was in the main part of the season. And actually, I think I'm not 100% sure on this fact, but I think if it wasn't showdown format, Jason would have still won by quite a considerable margin. So yeah, showdown or no showdown, it's a tough decision in the end, but I guess it's done for maybe the reason of the championship at the final round. It's decided at the last event.
What do you think of the showdown as a concept? Because it's been said a lot in the media, in the Superbike media recently, that they should scrap the showdown format. It's somewhat unfair to a guy that's been leading the championship by 130 points going into the final 3 rounds, that he essentially comes away with nothing. Would you keep it as is, or would you make any changes, or would you scrap it altogether?
There's an argument both sides. There's certainly a good argument that now is a good time to scrap it because we feel it isn't required. I might be right in saying that I think the showdown was brought in after 2009 when Leon Camier ran away with the championship and won it with about 3 rounds to go. But actually now it's so close anyway that I don't think it warrants having the showdown. And if you ask the riders, especially those riders that are in showdown or comfortably going to fight for the showdown, there's always going to be one guy that's not for it, probably in Jason's situation the guy that's leading the championship healthily, and 7 guys that'll be for it because it brings them closer. So it's a tough answer for any one rider to give while they're in the season. I feel like now is a good time probably to remove it because it's not required, but you can't hide the fact that it creates a lot of positive excitement for the final round. And look how busy Brands Hatch was. If it's done for that reason, it's working still. So there's arguments both sides.
So if you could have ridden, it's probably an obvious question, but if you could have ridden anything on the grid this year, what would it have been?
It's hard to say because I've not ridden. Actually, I say not ridden. I actually have ridden the McCann's Yamaha. I did about 4 or 5 laps in testing a few years ago just to feel their machine, and it felt incredible. It felt very refined. Is the words I would use. But I haven't ridden any of them bikes for a prolonged period of time. Clearly, the Yamaha looks strong. Clearly, the Ducati in the hands of Bridewell and Iden and Brooks make some parts of the season looks strong. Also, the rules in BSB mean that bikes can be quite equal. Again, I've said about my bike this year, the Honda, it wasn't a bad bike. The material was all there. It just lacked something that was holding it back from the results it deserved. Yamaha looked I'm not going to say easy, it's never easy, but Yamaha looked the easiest bike to ride. It looked smooth, it looked like it behaved, it looked like it was fast. It seemed like Yamaha have made the biggest step.
Well, you rode the Yamaha in endurance. So was there noticeable differences between the Yamaha that you were riding there and the Honda that you were riding back in the British Championship?
Yeah, absolutely. But also that's because they're two different spec bikes. The World Endurance Series uses what we used to be able to use in BSB, which was traction control, launch control, anti-wheelie. So you've got a chunk of electronic aid in the bike. And obviously the British Superbike spec is all turned off. No traction control, no anti-wheelie. And Endurance we use Dunlop tyres, BSB used Pirelli tyres. So there's a lot of differences. But yes, actually in terms of the feel from a Yamaha to a Honda, very, very different. The Honda makes its power in a completely different way to the Yamaha. Yamaha has a lot of torque, which is low down power, and you tend to throw a few more gears at that or calm that torque down. Whereas the Honda was just all top end rev. You had to really rev every inch out of the bike. So yeah, they were very different. In the end, you'd like to say when they're both performing at their best, they make a very similar lap time, but just in a different way.
So I guess the one question that a lot of people will be wanting to know is, will we see you back in the British Championship next year? What are your plans kind of moving forward?
Well, certainly I'm not planning on stopping just yet. I certainly intend to race. At this point, obviously, it's only 3 days after the final round at Brands Hatch, so a bit early to know what I'm going to be doing. I'm certainly working on some plans. I want to race in the British Championship paddock. And I want to race in World Endurance as well, so I'm going to look to combine the two in whichever way suits me best. I still feel like I have unfinished business in British Superbike. I feel like I can ride as strong as ever, as consistent as ever. I have a lot of energy to give in Superbike, but it has to be right. The last thing I need to do now is to, is to quickly, hastily agree to ride a Superbike that I'm going to finish in a similar area to where I've been this year. If you're going to do Superbike, it needs to be that you can do well. And if then maybe that chance isn't there, then I'll look to go across to the Stock 1000 Championship with a view of trying to win that or be as competitive as I can in that. So we're at a little bit of a crossroads. I'm not getting any younger. I'm 33, which is, I'm getting to the older part, but I've still got a good 4 or 5 years, of racing left in me at this level. So I'm going to work on it over these next few weeks and months and see what is the most exciting opportunity that can get me on the grid competitively. That's the key word.
So there's no plans to retire just yet?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Good stuff. So we can't be here, of course, in this very building without talking about I Buy Any Bike. So just give us a little bit of a rundown about what you guys are doing here.
Yeah, so essentially we started here in February or March 2020, actually right during the COVID lockdowns. It was probably my little COVID project actually. While everyone was locked down, I was busy putting this place together, if you want to call it that, which worked out well for the best. We're probably 18 months in now. We're a trade centre. We're a motorcycle trade centre. Source bikes locally or from one of our business partners, other bike shop called Optimum Bikes. And every month we're growing and growing. We're trying to increase our stock level. We've got two guys here full time, and myself here. I'm not here a lot, especially during season, but I'll be here a little bit more over the winter. And yeah, last month, for example, September 21 was our best month ever. But clearly now we're moving into the winter period where the sales are going to reduce, and we have to look to keep the place rolling in other ways. So it's been a good move. It's been exciting. Obviously, our passion is racing. We sell bikes as well, but our passion is racing. So we're looking to get involved in racing as well over the coming seasons. But it's been a good move. I've enjoyed it, and I think hopefully the future will be strong for I Buy Any Bike, and it can grow.
Do you have any difficulty in kind of managing your time between the business that you're involved in here and your racing career?
Fortunately, during season, no, because the two guys here, Matty and Brent, have had it under control, to be honest, and they've allowed me to focus on my racing. I had that discussion with them at the start of the year, whereas I didn't want to have my BSB contract and end up putting more effort in here than I could do for my racing. I wanted to give my racing full effort. Not only the training side, the testing side, the coaching. There's all sorts of other elements that go alongside the bike racing that would forfeit me having time here. So we made that sort of decision quite early last year to let them guys, manage this place full time, while I sort of focus on my racing commitments. To answer your question, yes, there's certainly a lot of things that go on in my life that I can spread time between. You know, if it's not here, there's coaching days. I work for Triumph. There's my racing. There's some of the endurance stuff. There's a lot of different things that I can spread time doing, which is great. And with 2 kids at home as well and a wife, it's sort of quite full on. But I wouldn't have it any other way. It's good.
You've also recently launched this year Woodcut Events as well. So tell us a little bit more about that and how.
Woodcut Events is a new venture with one of my friends, Gareth Bright, who worked for Triumph Motorcycles for 15 years. Essentially, Gareth has ran Triumph's press events for new model bikes, been released to the journalists all over the world. And we use that sort of business model, if you want to call it, just to provide paying customers with the same experience of these high-end 5-star hotels and great roads that we've found in these exotic locations over the years, to provide holidays for paying customers. Clearly, I love riding bikes. All the other riders that come on them events, the likes of Gary Johnson, Maria Costello, Billy McConnell, Taylor Mackenzie, a lot of other well-known motorcycle riders come on these events, and we felt that we had something there that paying customers could buy into, is a week away in an exotic location with their bike, riding on the roads in company of the likes of myself and the riders I've just named. Clearly, it's a new thing. It's going to take some time to build. It's going to take some time to build some awareness and get the first events underway. But we felt like we had something there that could run alongside my other things. And obviously, it's a full-time job for Gareth and his partner. So hopefully, in the next few months and years, that can grow as well, and in the future be something that I can split my time with.
You've got a few events kind of penciled in already, the likes of Spain and Portugal. Is there a destination you're particularly kind of looking forward to going, thinking, yeah, that's where I really want to go?
All of them, to be honest, because they're all great locations, and actually I've not done them all. I'm not going to sit and say I've ticked every one of them. I haven't. Some of them will be new for me as well, but we've done some great places in the past, like Morocco, which just a crazy experience, great place, lots to see, and I would like to venture places that I've never been to, like Norway or Finland, or places that have so much to explore, especially on a motorbike, that could be such fun. So hopefully in the future, the Woodcut Events tours will take us to some nice locations like that you can get to know.
So on a personal level, then, what's the plan for the rest of the year before we get into kind of talking about next season? How are you going to keep yourself occupied over the winter?
Yeah, pretty much as I said. We're here now 3 days after Brands Hatch. I'm only just sort of cooling down off after the season. What's in the forefront of my mind is working on the plans for next season. It's a key time now while seats are available, shall we say, or budgets to be put together to work on that and know what my racing next year is going to hold. Obviously, I can start putting some time back into I Buy Any Bike now. I've got a couple of trips planned away with Triumph, working for them, launching some of their new models in November, December. So it'll be spread between the 3 of them, really. I have no sort of other full-time job, if you want to call it that. So I just keep putting my time into the sort of 3 or 4 things that I'm involved in.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for your time again today. And yeah, it's difficult to know what to say about the season. I guess congratulations on managing to get through it without any major issues, apart from the obvious one at Alton Park. And I'm sure I speak for everybody when I say we're looking forward to seeing you back on the grid, hopefully next year.
Thank you. No, thanks for your support.